Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are on this beautiful blue planet. Another day to take a breath and celebrate life. Thank you for just being alive and enjoying these moments as we move through our multiverses together, interconnected somehow. So, does anybody know what really is going on? I mean, take a look at the graphic I'd set for the show tonight. 5 comets are in our skies. So if you know anything about ancient Chinese mythology, one is an omen that might take the emperor down. Five would absolutely be an omen in the skies that the entire population would have been looking at. Not really sure which direction it would transit, but whenever comets arrive, there's always some sort of strangeness, at least documented through the last 4,000 years. When powerful ones get close, changes in human behavior. When tails brush our planet, absolute wipeout because of diseases, some sort of panspermia, star water, something that contains different bacteria arrives on our planet and we're not used to it. So, where does it take us from here? That is the question. I'm not sure exactly, but I think I've lost my feed here. I don't see my camera. I don't see myself. Anyway, Ransom, take it over. There we go. We're back. All right. And I see that glow there, which we'll get rid of in just a minute. So much going on. Got the rate cuts. They're talking about using stable coins to devalue the U.S. debt of the 37 trillion and let everybody else across the planet take our losses as stable coins are pushed. Watch this, how we're going to force nations to allow our U.S. companies to force stable coins down their throats outside their own national sovereign currencies. Someone wanted to talk about. And also, I forget which bank it was. I'll bring up the slide for you. They're offering 1.4% on your Bitcoin deposits. But if you were just to hold that in your own private wallet, it'd probably be more closer to 25% per year compounding. So, as we take a look at what's happening in the world, the finance world has absolutely shifted. The world that we thought was stable for us to have free thought is suddenly shifted beneath our feet. I never thought I would see it where the complete right is saying you're not allowed to talk about these certain things. I'm like, well, bro, it's free speech. You can talk about whatever you want to. Court of public opinion can drag you out, tar and feather you behind the barn over there, but you should be allowed to say what you want to say. If you want to get tarred and feathered, say what you want to say. But to say people, you can't say that, that's what the leftists were doing before that people were so sick of. And now the pendulum swung and you're still saying the same thing. You're not allowed to talk about that. You can talk about this. I mean, everything has just gotten completely off the hook here. I'm just flabbergasted at the way things are distraction wise rolling out exponential as we move through the days, weeks, and months here. And, as we come into the holiday season, you've got Comet 3i Atlas going over Mars or very close. The trajectory is now slightly shifted where before it was going directly over Mars, but now it seems it's going to be like one maybe arc minute off or so. It's not going to be exactly right over it like was projected for it to skirt directly over the North Pole of Mars. It seems like it's going to be off a little bit. October 1st, I'm looking at the date here. October 1st is when that happens. That is just about 12 days away. So what kind of conjecture is going to surround this? Because the next arrival will be on Venus, and then it will be coming to our planet here right around Christmas. So you got the Muslim holidays, Jewish holidays, and Christian holidays. This comet arrives at each planet at different demarcations. So heading toward Mars, interstellar visitor, getting all crazy like on us here. So Ransom, where do you think it's going to go? The world is just seemingly, the more I look at it, becoming, I don't know, it's not insane. It's just people they're just stopping to deal with whatever's going on. They're just like checking out is the best way. It's like a world global checkout. I just don't care anymore. Don't want to participate anymore. Not going to involve myself anymore. And y'all just do your own thing. And I'm just going to pull over here and do whatever. It seems like we're at that juncture here. So thank you everybody tonight for joining Civilization Cycle. Remember civilizationcycle.com. I sent out the show notes just before we went live. That was the 10 bullet points from last week's episode. So if you're interested in that, civilizationcycle.com, jump on there, put in your email, and we'll send you out a single page of the points we talked about last week so you can share that with your friends and family, start conversations, And the key words are in there. So if you want to do more of your own research, you can do that. So with that said, in the beginning of the show, Ransom, welcome.
Yeah, some weird's going on right now. I think,
Somewhere's going on. That should be the name of the show. Somewhere's going on.
well, I've been literally scraping the bottom, like looking through every headline, every news outlet, and there's only one story. It's like what we were talking about Tuesday, but it's increased because they dropped Jimmy Kimmel off of the thing, which I think was actually a thought out staged event, because normally what would happen, because it's not just that he said something that wasn't a popular opinion. He said something that was outright lies, provable, easily proven lies. So what should have happened is they should have made him make a correction on air, like they usually do, like The View does, like 3 or 4 times a week, right? They have
For
to say,
show.
oh,
3 or 4
oh,
times per show, my friend.
yeah, right. They have to say, oops, well, we said
Cackling
that.
hens lying through their teeth.
That wasn't exactly true. We kind of just, made that up, or outright said it wrong, or lied by omission, or whatever it is. But what we're really seeing is the ultimate in propaganda from every angle, so much so that not even real news is leaking through at this point. This is a staged show, and I don't mean the events are fake or anything like that. What I'm saying is that every little action, there's a whole group of people that think, you know what, now we can do this, we can spin it this way, we can start doing this. So I don't understand why ABC, owned by Disney, fired him. Because if you go to the Disney or Hulu streaming services, you'll see that, well, they have a certain opinion. Matter of fact, they have so much of an opinion that not a single show or movie gets through without those opinions being expressed. My son, every once in a while, he kind of makes me watch these anime things, and I'm kind of like, whatever, but I'll watch it with them. So we watched what would happen if Superman landed in Russia, in the Soviet Union, right? And they use all of these terms, like, oh, we got to stop those crazy fascists over there with their America first. It's obviously propaganda put into even the cartoon for, I'm going to say young adults, because it's definitely not for children, but a lot of adults watch that too. So you could just see the propaganda from different angles bleeding through, depending on who owns what network, or who's in charge of production. But when you look through the news headlines, all you're going to see right now is Jimmy Kimmel, free speech, Ministry of Truth. It's like a mirror, that it's like the left has created a fake circumstance in which they could put up a mirror and act like they're the ones that are against all these things, like you said, that they've been doing for the past 10 years, like hardcore cancel culture that went nuts until it kind of backlashes, like from what's that, Cracker Barrel, etc. I mean, Bud Light. They're finding out that their tactics don't really work, so what they're doing is they're flipping back and reversing the tactic to fit how people are acting. So it's like a constant thing that they're going to twist us. So right now in the background, I know Israel is ground trooping out Gaza and other places. They're in big bombing campaigns. You don't see that. Russia and Ukraine are going at it hardcore right now. You're not really seeing much of that right now. It's just the presidential thing. Another weird thing is, the president just went to visit the King of England, and the King of England gave, I believe it was the King of England, that they gave Trump a leather binded copy of the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. Now, that was some kind of weird little, look, here you go. You guys aren't using this no more. It's a publicity stunt. And as soon as he leaves, they're going to declare Gaza as a recognized nation by the UK. So France has now done that, and some other ones. So what they're going to do is they're going to use this unfolding. It doesn't matter what you think about one side or the other. The world powers are going to use what's going on to their benefit, no matter what. And that includes China, that includes Russia, the European bloc, the US. We're all going to put little strings in there and try to pull it out to our benefit. Just like we were saying on previous episodes, the fight is on for kind of that navel of ancient maritime civilizations right there. If you remember, the Princess Europa came from Tyre, which is right there in modern day Jordan and Israel. That's what Europe is named after. So there's been some, real investment into what happens there for thousands of years, and has been constantly battled over that little area. And so we're going to do it again, but this time it's got to do with the formation of the new blocks and the new axis of evil is what they're going to call that. Obviously, they're already doing it. So that would be the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc. And we've kind of reached that point in the story where there's just going to be two sides of everything. You can't fit in. If you have any gray area, you're going to be attacked by both sides of an idea. No gray area. You're either this or you're that. And you know, they're going to be doing what they've always done, which is escalating things to the point where there's a division that can't be undone, right? And they've already tried that. It didn't really work. It hasn't really worked the last 10 or 15 times they've tried to have these shot around the world things. And this last time
But
they
humans
even
are smarter
called
than
it
that.
that. Yeah,
Humans can sniff through the bullpucky on that.
right. Until a couple of generations don't have reference and don't have history and don't have pre-knowledge of before the Smiths Months Act, and they don't know what's going on. And they can't tell that there's also an algorithm in the mix that's distorting their perception of reality on top of that. Like, I had to log out of things to get other articles today. Like, I had to log out of everything because it's only pushing one thing. And then that story goes back to the story from last week. They're interconnected and they want everyone focused on this polarization. Meanwhile, they're playing Risk on the map in real life. We're all getting ready for the strategic breakdown of the world map and its new boundaries and its new borders. And I don't know, man. There's going to be an
Well, wait a minute.
event.
Those new
You can
boundaries and
feel it,
borders are all predicated on food production and economy.
right?
So you can see that shift too. You just described it, where there's a polarization going on, where one half of the world's going toward gold and asset-backed currencies. The other half, like the U.S. homogeny and this whole friendly batch here, is going towards stable coins. So stable coin holders are going to absorb the U.S. debt as it devalues out, and they're going to hyperinflate it away. So, where does that live? And then, as soon as that gets close to any of these gold-backed nations, they're going to be like, nah, take those stable coins and shove them.
Right.
We're going gold back. If you're a gold back token issuer, you're probably going to survive. But the price of things are just going to get astronomical. I saw some forecasts today that at the minimum, get ready for this. They're looking at a minimum 10% inflation per year moving forward, minimum. So that I'm looking at this going, they were saying per year, but then, we're talking about it per month basis. And I'm like, whoa, you're talking about 8 to 10% per month. That people can't handle that. They were just like being conservative at 10% per year. And I'm like, wait a minute, you guys are going to hyperinflate away $37 trillion and you're only going to do 10% per year. I can't, it's unbelievable. Can you bring that article back up there? What you just showed? I sent that off to you earlier. Yeah, there you go. So establishing the United States as the global digital leader. This is the rift that we're talking about here. The one side of it's going on gold and, actual physical things that can be traded for another physical thing or gold settled or whatever you want to trade it for, because it's a physical thing. If I have this pen here and you need to write something down, you're going to trade me something for this. So here, this is what it is. The U.S. is trying to restructure not the U.S. dollar, but the U.S. dollar stablecoin, because it pushed through the Genius Act, as the new digital reserve currency. Now, here's what's happening. A lot of countries around the world are like, no, we don't want your USDT and USDC down in our countries, because like a taxi driver can flip over and take US dollar tether or US dollar circle instead of getting paid in their local currency. Well, a lot of countries, have said, no, we don't want that. And Trump's already threatening 100% tariffs if you do not allow our stablecoin issuers to do business in your countries. So they're going to take the 37 trillion that we have and just disperse it across the world and then deflate from there and inflate, depending on which end of the spectrum you sit on. So if you do not partake in the system, you will not partake in the export-import system of the Western world, period. So it comes down to this, and the real probably number that they're looking at is closer to 100 trillion after everything that's been added in. all these, Social Security and Medicare and the national debt and all these other things that have been put in on top of and are accruing interest. When you go well beyond that, 37 trillion, that's just for what we've issued for bonds and things, debt. But then we have all these liabilities that have been generational that add on top of that and on top of that and on top of that. So look at that digital capital growth. So they're looking for stable coins now at around 2 trillion to run somewhere up north of 200 trillion. Now, if you can't tell me that's hyperinflation, I would encourage you to do the math. How many times can you divide 200 by 2? That's how many times of inflation they're planning to push out here. Not 2 trillion, 200 trillion. So, what is your money going to really buy you at that point? This is why a lot of people are saying, no, we don't want to play. So of the if you're talking about on a global, something like 1.4 quadrillion, but only about, say 600 trillion of that is in the Western hemisphere. The rest of it is over in these gold-backed nations that are forming themselves. So when you hit it on the head there, Ransom, the world is literally splitting in half here. One is getting hyperinflated away to absorb the U.S. debt if you want to play in that sandbox. The rest of it's like, we don't care. We're stepping outside. We're going to go the other side of the playground and make our own sandbox, and we'll see you later. But you cannot tell me to offset the U.S. national debt, it's already probably closer to 39 trillion. I don't know. I didn't put up the U.S. debt clock. It's got to be somewhere running between 38 and 39. That is your inflation figure there, 2 trillion to 280 trillion. But I'll just say we conservative 200 trillion. So we're talking about hundreds, plural, of X devaluation in your purchasing power. You can't just create $198 trillion out of thin air and then expect things to stay the same price. That's insane. And this is what's happening right now. And this is why we're going to become the global leader of stablecoins, because the US government is just going to continue to print treasury bonds, short-term yield, like 1 month to 3 month. All these stablecoin issuers have to buy the short-term debt, like the 1 month or the 3 month T-bills, put it in their coffers, and then they can issue the stablecoin, which will be gobbled up across the planet as sort of a balance against a devaluing currency. Like, do you want the Argentinian peso or do you want a USDC token that possibly will hold closer to a dollar value for a longer period of time than devaluing 100% per year? Or do you want to get the South African rand or the Zimbabwe dollars? This is what we're coming at here. So they're going to offer all these nations that are already experiencing hyperinflation and economic runaway pricing, for a better term, forcing it down that you can take these stable coins, but realize we're going to print those into infinitum, like infinity. It's not going to stop. So this is the whole thing. In the beginning, it'll be fine. It's going to be great in the beginning. And things are going to run. And in those of you that are positioned correctly, you can make a lot of money. Make sure you get out, though, to get something a hard asset-wise. But then slowly after that, the rest of the world's going to start absorbing our hyperinflating, never-ending spend fest. Because as they print more, and however much goes up on auction for the T-bills, whoever buys that on the stablecoin issuers, 100% of that's going to get swooped up. And 100% of that, once it comes into the nice, neat package, can get reissued as a stable coin from the US dollar side of things. And Ripple wants to do that too for the RUSD, because they have this on-demand liquidity thing that's supposed to help all nations never collapse again. So they need hundreds of trillions in there too to keep the global financial system running. So this thing's going to work for a minute. It's going to work for a minute, but whoa, when it does stop and the chair's not there for the last person standing, oh my, it will absolutely implode the system. So why is this all happening now is the question. I could go on long-winded about this thing because that's all I study pretty much these days. But why is it happening now? Why now? It could have happened 10 years ago, but it didn't. All these people that disappeared during COVID, you got Kimmel and all these late night hosts and all these talk show hosts that are fleeing off the ship like a sinking ship with rats. Remember during COVID, how many movie stars, how many politicians just disappeared in the woodwork? We never heard from them again, like this Mayorkas crew and all these people that have been around that were naughty players through the last 4 or 5 years. They just disappeared. We don't even hear about them. Don't talk about their names. They're just gone in history, along with all of the participating movie stars, television personalities during those last 5 years that went along with the program, they're totally gone. Where are with everybody disappeared? Now we got these last round players that are suddenly all disappearing in mass again. Like, what is on the horizon again is my question. You
I
got
th-
to put these together, and it's not really like it's not that woo to go out there and put those couple of things together to go, wait, something big is coming. Something big is coming.
right. Well, a couple of things were happening with that. One, a lot of that got rejected. The people that were, kind of playing the game hardcore, they got rejected by the gen pop. They call it in prison. The general population, they got rejected. And the truth is that shows like Kimmel and The View, they've been losing ratings really bad for years. There's less and less people watching them, and they're bringing in less and less ad revenue. And then on top of that, they were being held up by things like US aid or USAID, however they want to say it, is US aid. I don't know why they kept saying it weird. I guess it was so that you didn't put two and two together that that's US aid, that they're aiding things that are not, programs that we want to pay for sometimes. They were getting subsidized. And the truth is Kimmel was about to go anyway. They were already going to end his show. So this is a big publicity stunt to push the narrative the other way. And remember, these are all the same people that wanted censorship, that wanted cancel culture. Now they're doing a 180. And I think,
Cancel them.
the big thing that's coming is what we're talking about, the polarization of nations, networks, money, money form, where you can go and all that. We talk about it a lot ad nauseum about the AI, the ID, but that's what's happening. You got Visa right here entering the digital ID race. A handshake in Dubai signals the future where identity payments merge into a single digital layer, including what? Your biometrics, right? That thing that you sent me.
I can't wait to give him my retinal scan. I'm just waiting in line.
Right. The thing that you sent me is basically what I've been telling you, that you can convert any camera into a biometric sensor. And when you do that, there's a complete digital upload of everything about you that is you, how you respond, your emotional, state, all of that stuff. And it can be made into a digital copy of your identity, which can be used to really manipulate your life. And then now they're making it, they're really trying to push these age verification things, which is just another foothold in to make sure that everyone has a digital ID. And then you get to stuff like this: Saudi Arabia, nuclear armed Pakistan sign mutual defense pact, because every place that's going to sign an agreement to do commerce, they're also going to agree to be on the same side of whichever security state that's running at that time. So you can see the players in the Middle East picking sides: China, Russia, whoever. They'll backdoor it like this. So you can backdoor it through Pakistan. Now you got to be friends with who's Pakistan's friends with, and vice versa. And, we know Saudi Arabia is a major player that kind of doesn't really get spoken about much, but they are a major player in world affairs, especially when it comes to the Middle East, the ports, Iran, Israel, all of that stuff. They're a major player in that. So everybody's going to have to start picking sides. And that's what they're pushing the narrative as. It's come to a pimple that's about to pop. And they've been building that pimple probably since, I'm going to say, 2003, shortly after 9/11 on 2001. The first thing that happened was Katrina, right? Katrina. They showed that the federal government, despite just being turned into this monstrosity, couldn't even deal, or didn't want to deal with, an emergency that their own people said was going to happen for, for at least a year before it. The Army Corps of Engineers told them that, if a direct hit happened from a hurricane, that levee wouldn't hold and it would flood downtown New Orleans and all those homes and businesses. But it seemed like they were okay with that. They wanted to restart that area, start new construction. And since then, we've been seeing the same thing: storm after storm coming in, slow response, land grabs, the insurance changing, just like you were talking about Tuesday, where they can decide that, well, even though we told you that we would cancel your insurance if you didn't take something, or you might get, fired from your job, or not get access to, the hospital, or your lawyer office, or the city and state, government buildings without putting on your face diaper and getting your medication. They said, oh, no, 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 we didn't make you do that. And if you did that, we might cancel your coverage because technically, they didn't call it what it really was, but we did in our legalese. We called it the right name. So later on, you'll be wondering why they don't want to pay for certain conditions that you might get. And then, a weird thing that
I might say something about the levee too. There was a lot of people who had talked about hearing explosions during that time on the levee or around that levee area. Like it was actually purposefully, destroyed to allow that water to come in. Because they weren't 100% sure that the levee would break with just the storm itself. But there were dozens and dozens and dozens of accounts of them hearing explosions out there during that hurricane arrival. Like they dynamited the levee to let it break on purpose. Just throwing that out there.
that could have happened. And we're at that point right now where there's they're talking about all these different kind of fatigues. Well, there's a conspiracy theorist fatigue out there. Every single event has 12, 50, 100 different versions, stories. People are pointing out things. The law enforcement people never seem to give enough information to stop that from happening. Like, they wouldn't come. I'm wondering if these latest events are going to be classified like, so many other events get classifications from the federal government where they're top secret or classified. For what reason you couldn't even, why? I think they do that just to mess with you, just like Netanyahu has got on 3 times on TV saying we didn't have nothing to do with that. Now, why would you even say that if you didn't, unless you wanted to fuel the conspiracy theories that you did do that? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. Even if you did it or you didn't do it, there would be no reason to make so many comments about it unless you wanted people, to think about all of that. So there's like conspiracy theory fatigue where no one can believe. And it goes back to the thing we were talking about. It's the multiverse. Each individual person has their own opinions, perceptions, is being targeted by algorithms specifically tailored to them on top of that to kind of set fire to the fuel of imagination. And then in the background,
You should be able to talk about that's the whole thing again, like even the right or consider what, on the MAGA Trump side is now pushing for bans on free speech where you're not allowed to talk about that. You
right.
can't say that. What is going on with that insanity? Anyway, I don't care.
It's
Again, I
doubling
don't care
down.
what side of the alley you're on. If you're not going to allow free speech, you say what you want. If you get, like I say, drug out in the back and tar and feathered, that's cool. That was you said it. That's fine. You can say it. If people don't agree with it and they whoop you for doing that, that's fine too.
Right.
But come out right and say you can't say it, talk about it. Then it goes right back into which one of those 30 is correct that you're not allowed to talk about.
Right. It's always been known that you've had free speech to say dumb things, wrong things, whatever, as long as they don't endanger a human being. So that goes for the thing. You reap what you sow. People might beat you up, tar you, and feather you, but then those people chose to do that, and they're subject to being prosecuted for doing assaults and crimes against those people. So it's all your choice to do that. So there's the whole idea of making speech laws is asinine in a country that's supposed to have free speech.
Ridiculous.
And it
this
is
side
ridiculous.
of the aisle supporting that too is even sadder. I mean,
Well, it just shows you the uniparty coming out again.
Yeah, it sure
in the
does,
end.
doesn't it?
And then think about this: we just pulled out. We gave the Taliban, 81 to 87 billion dollars worth of military equipment. Now we're going to move right back in there because we're worried about China. Weren't we? Were already worried about China. This is the funny things that I see happening. I'm not blaming the Trump administration, but I'm saying some people were armed and now we're going to move right in next to it, which obviously would lead to some kind of provocation or actions to take care of that said $87 billion worth of stuff that we handed off to them. So this is all about the last little undeveloped piece of the map between Iran and China, right? We talked about it before. They're building a train. We're building pipelines. We need to get control of that whole spot where Afghanistan touches China, which allows it to have trade routes into the Middle East and Europe.
The Khyber Pass, man. If you go back in history, the Khyber Pass was the most fought over piece of land in the last 5,000 years. The Khyber Pass was what allowed all that trade you're talking about to occur. It's that little sliver of what it was between mountain ranges. And I would encourage you to look at the Khyber Pass, Khyber. And if you get up in there and, you come over and there's a huge amount of areas that, we kept hearing about again and again where we got bogged down, where we couldn't operate really. And they had to slam 2,000-pound bombs in the mountains for months on end to even kind of get a foothold in there. You know, that place has been contested forever, and there's a bunch of ethereal types of things and stories of like energy pyramids and inverted swirling on the ground. There's an enormous amount of strangeness associated with that area, let's say, but it could be Paleozoic energies coming up from the rocks because it's all granite crushing on there. A lot of precious metals, or excuse me, precious stones come from there. The whole illegal emerald trade's really there. They were used to blow the rocks up and try to just get the fragments of emeralds, and then they went in with higher tech and like, hey, we'll help you smuggle those out, but we'll get them more intact for you. Okay. There's a whole rubies too. There's a whole bunch of just strangeness that has been going on for thousands of years. Emperors from China used to send tribute down there to make sure those routes could stay open. I mean, you had the Northern Silk Road and you had the Southern Silk Road, and that way through all the way to Persia was one of the most contested. From India, the Indus Valley, that whole thing converged. China, Indus Valley, Persia, it all converged and allowed that trade route through the Khyber Pass.
And then you got the Silk Roads and all that, all the way up into modern history. They've been trying to control that.
Yes. And why would it be very different now? I mean, they can barely even keep highways open right now anyway there, but still, walking through camel trains and different kind of animal packs that it had gone through, but still that area of history is just incredible. The amount of finds. So you'd have to, think about if it's that valuable today, then going back pre-flood or pre-pole shift or younger Dryas impact, which shifted a lot of land and caused an enormous amount of subsistence and upwelling of lands. Like, could there have been a cradle of civilization, of even older civilization there too, if it was that important for the last 13,000 years or 10,000 years here on our planet at this time? Then was it just important 15,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 years ago as well? Like, that is one of the places you want to be looking for a lot of ancient stuff. And, a lot of our bombing campaigns, including from World War II, destroyed an enormous amount of history. So you got to look at wars in two fashions. Is it really for resources, or does it also destroy the remnants of ancient history? A bit of both, I would say.
Well,
again, that could be a little woo on the Thursday night here for us to go into.
Speaking of woo, that's all of the area where the rumors of modern encounters with Vimanas happen, and ancient ones too. That's the whole area through the Afghan mountains.
That's the Vimana Central,
right? So who knows? That might be another angle on, if you want to get woo, that they were fighting over that area because they know there's something to dig up, and I think they're good with the rest of the world. They dug up what there was through the Crusades all the way up to modern times. They've been digging in certain spots. I think they got it all. And there's a couple other places that were out of their control from the past.
Iraq, for example.
Right. Well, they've been digging that up, since 2001.
Heavy. Who do we want? We want Gilgamesh's head, man. Give me that one.
Right. So here's all our comments right here.
Only 5, man. Only 5.
The thing is this
at the same time.
This is actually pretty normal amount of comics going through. We only really make a big deal out of them when you can see them from Earth. So, I mean, like, I have a little app that shows me this. And, I know this is a sidetracking thing, but you were talking about the gold and all of that stuff a minute ago. My son's been telling me, well, he's been showing me. So basically, he's turned into like the exchange down there because he's he works at the register or whatever. So all these people are coming in with these old silver coins, using them for money because they don't know they're silver, like $50, dollars, dimes, all this stuff. And it's obvious that it's all, inherited wealth, and they don't know what they have there. So they think they just got, oh, it's a jar of change or whatever. They're not looking at it. So they're getting to pick through it, as it comes in and buy it, put down a paper, grab that silver one out, buy it with 50 cents of modern quarters, pull that $50 out, make it out on the silver, 40 to 70% on several coins he's brought home. It's really tripped me out that there's a whole group of millennials that have not a clue, none. And these kids, these Generation Z, are catching on. Wait a minute, I can trade all this worthless wealth for wealth that's real. That was just a side note, but back to the comments. I'm sorry.
No, back to these comments. The one, Lemon and the new Catless, that goes Swan, and then also Atlas. These are all going to be visible eye comets here. Neat, it's a little further out, it's getting past out. It's out past the orbit of Mars, so it might not. But as Atlas swings in and comes around our vicinity, and then obviously the tail is atrociously long with Swan right now, and then Lemon again is going to pass, like I think 0.2 lunar or astronomical units away from us. So, that's going to be very visible to us. So, like I say, in ancient Chinese mythology, if one's visible, that's an omen. With three visible, again, because there's ancient sects within, like the Beidou Qixing, it's the cult of the Big Dipper, is still very operational inside China and Japan as well, and Korea. Like they all worship the Big Dipper because what they understand is there's a Birkeland current in the stars there that come to our star that give it the energy to have the ignition in the plasma sheath around it. They call it the seed point of humanity. So without that current flowing into our star, charging it to allow it to have its plasma sheath around, like electrically, then we would have no ignited star. So they look at it and they figured this out a very long time ago, that the Big Dipper is where that emanation point of the Birkeland current comes that actually touches our solar system here, that generates that power current on that. So they have been following this for at least 3,500 years. It's in Japan, it's in Korea, and it's in China. And it's the very ancient knowledge that this wisdom is held and passed down. It is just as viable, probably stronger today because they have better viewing technologies. But there's entire sects that talk to the leaders of these countries about these things they're seeing in the skies. 3 comets, that's a tremendously large omen for most all cultures in the world. If you go back to anything, 400 or 500 years ago, and you had 3 visible comets in the sky at the same time, that would be absolutely a predictor of massive, gargantuan, unbelievable amounts of change on our planet. Just the way, one can set people off. 3, and then if we come into some eclipses, declining magnetic field, stepping off into solar minimum. Yeah, and then this one here, I'd look at that and I shake my head. That's not a real photo. That can't be a real image of that's like a generated image of the black hole. Like they can't even see that thing. So how can they know what it looks like?
No, anything we see is always a digital representation
Oh,
of
it's a digital
X-ray or radio or anything like that. But the point of this article is basically that they're studying that they now know that the what we're calling black holes every so often do a magnetic flip, and it polarizes its magnetic pull or push, just like our sun, just like our planet. So think about this. This could be like a domino effect that's something that you cannot measure on a cycle. When things like this flip, then they flip the next solar system, the next solar system. If you see what I mean, things could be happening that happen to our sun that there's no way to record it or document it, and it's happening out in space. I know a lot of people talk about galactic sheets and stuff like that, but really what I'm talking about is more like if you had a bunch of magnets on the floor and you flipped one, it's going to cause a chain reaction to all the other ones to flip over and reset too. So if things like this are happening, and we know that it happens every 11 years on our sun and periodically on the earth, that kind of means that we just really don't know what's going on with that at all.
I'm just looking up here to see how far in galactic light years M87 is. 53 million light years from Earth. Second brightest galaxy within the northern Virgo cluster and multiple satellite galaxies. But if you're talking electromagnetically, now think about that in the center of our galaxy. So if that flipped, can you imagine everything else, all the planets and all the stars, what it would do within that local galaxy? It's Messier 87, M87, a galaxy in the Virgo cluster. Supergiant elliptical galaxy. So think about if our own black hole flipped polarity completely, like how long would it take for that to resonate out through the spiral arms here before it would hit us? Because they talk about the Mayans measuring something very similar to that. And the polarity changes, we go above and below the ecliptic on the actual, what you would consider the horizon of that zero demarcation, looking straight in the flat plate, for a better term, along the ecliptic into the center of our galaxy, back into that black hole. So when we rise above that, we get a polarity change. And when we dip below it, we get a polarity change. But in that center mark, when we're trying to rise above or below it, is when apparently the resets and cataclysms of man occur. So,
Right.
Aztecs, Mayans had just, been looking at this. Mayan cycles go back. Their longest cycle known in the Mayan kingdom was 280 million years. Like, who the hell is measuring that? Because you and I talked about it. You need to see it twice to know it's a cycle.
Right.
Right. 280 million times 2 times 3 times 4, then you're talking about billions of years here for them to measure something. Like,
Yeah.
who's around that long? Who has that much knowledge? That's so many previous other iterations of knowledge passed down from other species or something. That's impossible for us to measure like that. So how do they have it above and below? They knew that it took from where we, like, let's say today, what is it? The 18th of September, 280 million years, we would have made one whole circle completely back around to the exact same start point in our galaxy. After we've gone above and below the ecliptic all the way around, we'd come back 280 million years in one circular rotation.
Right.
Who measures that?
Well, who knows? And we're talking about 2 times to know there's a pattern, but 3 times to verify that it's a
Yeah.
pattern. So when you start thinking about
You're like, whoa.
these time scales, and all of that kind of relates back. I think we're at either an end or a beginning of a cycle that terrifies the people that run the planet for whatever reason. Maybe they feel like they're losing control because of technology, or they think that it's finally time that their technology can take control. And it's a wonderful, wondrous world out there of products, but where does it end? We kind of talk about that a lot. And
As
is it
sad as to say,
reliable?
I want to get a pair of those, but I don't want them as AirPods because that's not good for your brain. But if there's a different way to, like, use a plug-in something to do the same thing, I would love to get that technology.
It's great. It's again one of these two-sided coins. But the problem is it reliable or is it truthful? And I'm not just talking about these AirPods that supposedly can translate languages to your ears. I live in a bilingual family, so there's a lot of different languages happening all the time and a mix between them all the time. But when we watch movies of one or another, like say we watch a movie from Spain, um, my partner automatically notices, that's Spain Spanish, that's different than the Mexico City Spanish, that and whatever. Okay, that's dialect, and that's a little twang on it, accent. But whenever you're watching a movie in English that's originally in Spanish, or vice versa, and I'm sure that this is true for the other languages, they don't actually tell you what they're saying down there. I get mad all the time because I know enough Spanish. I know that's not what they said. They said something kind of to that effect, but a totally different idea because they didn't bother translating it. So if the technology starts doing that, you're getting this real-time editing of your surroundings, and they're really pushing these uh, peripherals, whether it's in your ear, under your skin, over your eyes, whether you wear it as a patch or an implant. It doesn't matter. There's a problem glaring out from this stuff, that it's not only easily manipulated, easily hacked, but there's something wrong with the original source code of almost all these things. Zuckerberg here getting humiliated on stage after his AI powered smart glasses kept glitching. So they couldn't even sell their product because it wasn't working right. Or maybe somebody sabotaged them. We'll never know. But the point is that we're getting to that. We're literally at that point, and we've talked about it before. You can't believe anything you see now on the feeds, on the TV, on your internet feed, on your phone, on the computer. It all can be altered and in real time. That's the crazy part of this. So
Yeah,
Zuckerberg
but
promised.
again, Ransom, let's see here. Also, I thought you were going to say something else of that, but this also is the cusp where you're not going to be able to function in society if you don't integrate with this tech. Like, they're already saying super intelligence just for having a pair of glasses on. Like, how's everybody else going to compete? If you didn't use AI to do some stuff like we do, like, how do you compete? Now they're saying super intelligent, you got to wear the glasses. Well, what's the next step? It's going to be the implant.
Right.
This is where we're
And,
going to two species here. I guarantee it.
well, there's another problem with this too. Say you got the something like the ear pods in, and you got the glasses on, whatever company it is, and you're feeling real cool because you're looking at people, you're getting a profile, you find out what stuff is, what references are, you can do this and that. It's great on that end of the thing. However, when you go back to the idea of your input to your natural being manipulated, and we were talking about the digital IDs a minute ago and the biometrics. See, that's where being stolen, the information being stolen can be used against people that have been wearing the glasses, say for 10 years, 15 years, or like you said, it's already beyond an outside peripheral and now it's inside of your head. The information for these things can be changed. So what you're looking at isn't really what you're looking at. So you could see a guy and it says, this is John Doe. He has a credit score of this, blah, blah, blah. But really, it's not John Doe. It's a different John Doe. But your filter is not letting you see it. So that can happen with anything, with news, with events that happened where you think you're recording it and seeing it in real time, but it got digitally changed. And the copy inside your head also got digitally changed because the source was external. I mean, this is a terrifying new era that we're moving into. And yes, it's going to give advances. And if you can keep up with it, you might be able to realize, like when watching TV, you watch a movie and you go, oh, yeah, I know that's some propaganda they put in there. And you're like, whatever. When you know about it, you see the images, you know they're throwing stuff at you. It doesn't really affect you. But this is different. This would be the original copy of whatever you heard, thought, or saw. And it can be totally changed. Fortunately, it ain't working out for them. But don't think they're going to quit. Obviously, they're going to continue. So they want you out here wearing, space goggles that tell you what things are while they're hiding in their bunker because they don't want to interact with you outside. I mean, all of these guys are building bunkers. Every single one of them. What do they know that we don't know?
Yeah, something bigger's coming.
There's got to be a time period in which they think it will be bad, but short enough where they could come out of said bunker and retain power. So that kind of narrows down what kind of event we're talking about. If they really believe that they're going to open up the bunker and come out and get their stocks and their power back and utilize their lands and their companies after everything's been destroyed, it has to be something smaller than that. That's why I think it's going to be like magnetic glitch out where everything gets fried and you have to buy new equipment for everything. Imagine the economy on that, where you have to replace everything that was digital. And by the way, you can't get what you had before, not the old thing that you knew how to work on or fix or fidget with until it worked right. These are new things you have nothing about, that's proprietary and void if you try to mess with it, or it might even become criminal because how the in the let's say near past, they've been making products that don't actually belong to you. So you get a product, but it actually it's still owned by the company. They're just leasing it to you or letting you borrow it or letting you use it, but it's not actually your device. And that's why they don't need your permission to update it or to change its function or to discontinue it or any of that stuff.
John Deere tractors. Pyramid Pure Drew says 28% depopulation would be needed to free up the grid for AI. I have a number for you here. I haven't seen 28%, but I have seen 12% because in the next 3 years, that entire usage of power demand for just AI data centers will increase to 12% of all power on the planet. Currently, it's at 3, a little over 3. It was like 3.4%, something like that. Read the article a couple weeks ago, and I have to dive into the memory banks to see what it was exactly. But I do remember them saying 12% within 3 years. So think about that just for a second. All AI and everything that's driving up everybody's power bills and skyrocketing inflation, everything already for electrical usage, which passes on, especially if it comes from a factory, especially if it comes from cold storage. Like you're using all of this additional power just to keep our lives moving forward, and it's costing you more money. If you're going to charge your car, it's going to cost you more. That's only 3% of all electrical usage being used up by AI data centers. And I would also probably throw in blockchain and some sort of cryptocurrency mining, or, look at what's going on the distributed ledger with XRP. I mean, they're running power for that too. But just leave all that at 3%. Now, what if it ratchets up to 12%? I mean, that is a societal reset in itself with that much power going into something else that's going to drive the prices up so heavily. So walk back with me on the stablecoin issuance here with the Genius Act, and we're going to try to slough off all the debt to all these other countries through stablecoins and then hyperinflate that away. Is it really the hyperinflation that's causing your electric prices to go up, or is it the excuse of the stablecoins hyperinflating that's giving you the perception that your electrical prices are getting more expensive because of hyperinflation on the stablecoin side of it? But really, it was hyperinflation from the usage of AI data centers masked and buried, because you would get angry with a sledgehammer and going to want to go start looking for these places. You know, you did 3% is stretching our civilization at the moment right now. 3%, 12% is a game changer. And at that point, you know, the angry mobs do come out and they're going to start looking to see how they can smash these metal mofos into bits, as we remember in the Terminator movie. She's like, how do we smash these into bits? Well, something very similar is occurring right now. So what is going to be the excuse? I think the latter is, I think they're going to try to mask the hyperinflation of power prices by using the stablecoin excuse, not telling you the truth that all this power is being rerouted over into everything else that's going to be track, trace, and the whole AI thing that's moving forward. Which one would you accept is the question.
Well, you're going to have to accept the system, and even buy a premium membership so that when you get caught at one of these toilets, you don't have to watch an advertisement before you get toilet paper. I mean, that doesn't this like kind of encapsulate the entire reset mode right here, the subscription model. Dystopian toilets won't give you loo roll unless you watch an advertisement first. And just a minute ago, we were talking about those peripherals.
Of
Can you
course, it'd be rolled
imagine
on China
not
first.
being able to watch reality until you watched the damn commercial? And, we joke about the science fiction shows like Black Mirror. They had that episode where it wouldn't even let the guy sleep because he didn't have enough credits to get rid of the commercial. So he had to listen to commercials all night while he tried to sleep. Well, think about if you got an implant, or think about this. You know how they have all of these alerts on your phone all the time. There's weather alerts, the silver alert, an amber alert, the presidential alert or whatever. All of that stuff is not going to be able to be filtered. You can't just turn it off. It'll be internal. All your devices will be hooked to this. You have to play the game or you can't travel or even wipe your butt. And then
not a chance, man. I'm just on the record going to say I will not accept a brain implant like that, because things are going to go terribly wrong. Like, think about buying a computer in 1996. And it's 2025. Yeah.
Right.
I don't have the money for the upgrade.
That's right. It's just like upload. You have to pay the company money to slow down your mileage clock in your brain so that you can absorb all of the, info that you're getting in the nature. And if you can't pay the subscription, well, your mileage clock might just speed up in your brain there.
Oh, can you imagine getting millions of images? Like, you would just literally go insane. Almost like, dropping 100 hits of acid and not being able to filter out all the information coming in, Not that I would do that, or have I done that, but I would just imagine, multiplied out by 50 or 100, how reality might bend itself, because the filter seems to get destroyed when you do a few psychedelics. Like, the filtering mechanisms go kind of askew, for the best term.
Right.
A lot of things that you would never notice that are maybe are filtered out suddenly are not any longer, and you start to see different layers of reality that were always there, but they just kind of become front and center. And you're like, wait, you're always here. Oh, wow, I just cracked through this thing. That's cool. And then, you might see something off the side, like a TV or something, and you're like, whoa, that thing makes no sense. And then suddenly all of the programming that you've been pushed into you for 15, 20, 50 years or whatever it is, however long, just suddenly decouples in like literally seconds. You're no longer a valuable robot in society any longer after psychedelics. You're really just, the programming disassociates itself. So that's why it's so illegal to have these things, because the deprogramming is so powerful that you literally do not abide by or adhere to the system any longer. You question everything. I heard it from somebody that happened once, so I'm just saying.
So what happens if I just, squeeze out some mushroom juice in one of those brains in a jar in the robot? I mean, like, what happens then? What happens if they, you start doing that to the products that, are biologically and synthetically engineered? We were talking Tuesday about the reverse DNA that they're trying to make with synthetic DNA that's absolute inverse of life. And then, will the chemicals still work for that? Or are they going to make a backwards chemical for those things and to see where that goes into the undiverse or something like that? Like it's getting really crazy. But this article right here, we can talk about it when we get back. This is it, isn't it? The world's food problem. And scientists are saying, being skinny might kill you too, quicker than obesity, even. Duh. I mean,
And Ozempic, dude, they're pushing it. So now you're getting the mixed messaging.
well, just think about it. If food is short and all you're eating is these processed foods with no real dietary nutrition, in a sense, what you are is fat and skinny at the same time. So you have a layer of cortisol fat, stress fat, unhealthy fat all over your body from these messed up, products. But at the same time, inside of all of that fat is this little skinny, malnourished person that's lugging literally all this baggage around with them. And, that sounds horrible, but that's really the case. And that's what's happening with people when they're both obese and malnourished at the same time. And then now are taking, venom from the most poisonous reptile on the planet, the Gila monster, and injecting it into them so that they, so they could lose weight or not be diabetic. I mean, like they have 12 or 15 different reasons for that. That it treats migraines supposedly. Now, I'm not knocking supposedly a miracle drug if it really works in the long run as intended, but I don't remember much studying before just Ozempic kind of came out, and then you get all these warped faces of people my age where their face is sliding off of their skull. It's really bizarre looking, man. And it's just, like I said, being too skinny might kill you quicker than obesity, especially if we go to war and we stop trade and there's malnourished, if I could even get that out, malnourished people everywhere. And guess what? They're not going to be fighting no rebellions or really adding to the cause if they're, ain't got no energy. I'm in pretty
They'll
good
be
shape.
lining up in a camp to get their food so they don't starve, is what they'll be doing.
Right. Well, I was going to say I'm in pretty good shape and we eat decent as far as like mostly real food. And if I don't do something for 3 or 4 days and then I go out and work, I feel it. So even being in good shape, and then I'm just imagining if you haven't had any food, no sleep, you're stuck on these peripherals, giving you entertainment 24 hours a day, giving you, you're mad about this, you're sad about that, you have anxiety about this, you're scared of the comet, you're scared of the war, you're whatever, you're getting all these stress hormones building up cortisol fat on your body while you're shrinking away inside of it.
Happy Thursday, everybody. We're going to take a short break here. Wait, I have a comment here. Ban everything. They've confirmed a second Younger Dryas airburst site in Louisiana, Perkins impact. They've also discovered more across Southwest into California. Well, see, that would make sense because these things seem to be coming on a regular pattern. So it's not that there's one and that's it. It seems to be a recurring pattern. And depending on which direction the pole has shifted, if you believe in such a thing, off the ecliptic, whatever degree that might be, you will start to see repeating patterns of it. So if it holds state, like in our present, degree where we sit off is not exactly, that's why everything looks tilted, even though they try to give you the view of a perfectly flat disc. We're kind of off. If that were to occur twice, what if it's on a 6,500 year cycle? Would that change things? What if it's on a 3,500 year cycle or a 3,300 year cycle? Like maybe that's why that 33 is so incredibly important for the Masons and that sort of thing. The 3,300 year cycle, and then you get the 6,600 year, and then those two 66s match pretty much up with Younger Dryas, right? So when you start to get these sort of matchovers, are there smaller cycles that are still enough to disrupt the world at 3,300 years? And if the answer is yes, then we're at 3,300 years again, which would be a mini cycle in itself. It wouldn't be like a Younger Dryas full impact on an ice sheet. And then they had the whole, Lake Missoula overflow over doing the scablands and sort of thing, outflows out to the ocean. But how much, what kind of mini cataclysm would it take to reset society on, not like you said, not so terribly, destructive that they couldn't come back after 3 to 5 years, pop out of their holes and then restart everything with their advanced tech. At that point, we would be able to rebuild society relatively quickly on a minor reset, on a 3,300 year type of thing, but on a cataclysmic 12,000 year, supernova type of event, or, straight into an ice sheet kind of impact off a comet or some sort of mega meteor, that's hard to come back from. That evaporates so much water, nothing grows, just blocks out the sun on the whole planet. There's pockets that'll survive, but that's a big one. Like Lake Toba, 70,000 years prior, that was a VEI 9 eruption, and it was a mega volcano that just went off, and that nearly disrupted. Apparently, there were only 10 million humans left, or 10 million breeding pairs. Maybe there were 20 million humans. That's it. The entire world's population shrunk down into the bottleneck off of one volcanic eruption. So then we really don't want to admit that this sort of thing had happened again just 13,500 years ago, 12,600 years ago. So we get the second airburst there, Younger Dryas. I would wonder what the dating is on that, and if it does line up with certain like synchronicities in terms of dates that can be measured. I might do a little research on the break here. We're going to take a couple minutes. Thank you for joining us, Civilization Cycle. Remember, civilizationcycle.com. Jump over there, throw in your email. We'll get you the show notes for tonight. And also Civilization Cycle, buy me a coffee. Someone bought us 3 coffees. Thank you very much. And Alison Bevege, thank you for the triple-double espressos. We'll read your message here, talking about 9/11 from last week's show, because being the anniversary of 9/11 and all the shenanigans went off and how Building 7 was pulled and all these different things. So I'll be happy to read your comment there. Lies to spread. Great. We'll see you when we come back. 2 and 2, as Chuck Woolery would say. We'll see. This is not a toothpaste. It's a revolution for your teeth. Remineralize, strengthen teeth, all natural ingredients, essential oils, minerals, salts. Alfa Vedic Dental Solutions System. That's alphavedic.com/civilization. We're always trying to bring you the best products here that we think will enhance your life, especially if supply chains break down further, or if there's some disruption in our lives here. It seems in the news more and more possible, but hey, who knows? Maybe it's a mind game. But what is not is keeping your dental health up. And not a lot of people are talking about this. We always see the storable foods. But what about dental care during these same emergency situations? Will your toothpaste eventually run out? Well, if it does, then what? So like I say, this whole micro gut biome is driven by your oral cavity first. So take a look at what they have, alphavedic.com/civilization. Every purchase you make helps keep our live radio show and podcast on air, bringing you more information just like this. alphavedic.com/civilization. That link is in the show notes below. And as always, I appreciate your valuable time and joining us in this ever and most important conversation as we move forward in our world.
Please remember to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. And thank you for all the support.
The obvious question, are you on shrooms? Illuminated Shrooms, combining 6 powerful mycelium in a Fulvic Mineral delivery system, selected for their synergistic, restorative, and protective actions. Potent organic extracts of Cordyceps for stamina, lion mane for cognition, Reishi for longevity, Chaga for detoxification, Agaricus for resistance, nutrient-rich turkey tail, a new standard and excellent illuminated shrooms from Alfa Vedic. And please remember, ladies and gentlemen, every purchase you make helps keep this podcast on air, bringing information just like this, because we're at this critical juncture right now in our civilization, our society. We need to share information more than ever. We need more solutions than ever. And sponsors like Alfa Vedic keeping us on air just like this, your support to them helps support us, because we need to go through this together. And the more discussion and the more solutions, the easier it's going to be. So please remember that link's in the description box below. And are you shrooming? That is a very valid question at this evening juncture here on Thursday night. Thank you for joining us. Civilization Cycle. And I'm going to try to bring you over to our favorite robot fight scene here. And we'll see if I can pull up the screen for you, the entire screen. Nope. Let's see if I can get to the window. Yes, here we go. I'm going to share this one. Hopefully it'll be worth sharing. So if you thought that the robots were just clunky and they weren't going to run around or they weren't going to work and you could outrun these things, this is what you're up against. And this is the tiny one. They make it, this thing you might, well, I'm not afraid of that. Me and another dude could take that thing down. No problem. If we had a net, we could probably grab it. And if I had some kind of hammer, I could hit it. But what about the ones that are 8 feet tall already and impervious to any types of electrical discharge into them? Hardened wire, carbon fiber steel plating, and these things that could withstand rounds coming at them. This is what we're really looking at here. So, as the future is bright, what does this portend for us? Because this is what they're trying to bring out. These robotic features are going to be part of our society moving forward. And as they talk about robots, coming in to help us, like the Jetsons, and they're going to be helping us a little bit do housework and field work and this sort of thing. Do you want one of those in your house? Do we need to allocate the power from my power bill to continue to have those running around our world? Do you think that's a good idea? Now, right, it reminds me of iRobot. The old ones that were clunky, and then all of a sudden you got the new ones that were like phantoms. So put it in perspective. What they're showing you right there with that small robot that was fightable, and it was possibly us, so we could have a chance against that with 2 or 3 people. We could take one down. The size of them is approaching 7.5 feet now. And that girth on that, at something at 7.5 feet, the arm length span on that, it would be, you'd have to use some incredibly thick netting or some kind of rope net that you would see, in the old cargo ship things from the 1930s where they'd pull up the cargo in those giant nets. You'd almost have to have something like that, but reinforced with some sort of braided steel fiber so that thing couldn't rip apart. I mean, that's the kind of challenges that we would be facing just on a daily here as we move forward in our world. So thank you for joining us for the second hour. Again, civilizationcycle.com. Check out the show notes there. Also, the Civilization Cycle podcast. I'll have a couple of new episodes up at the end of the week here, talking about demons in the ice in Antarctica that we got a impromptu live show on Thursday night. And dirt bikes, yeah, that's the way to go. If you have a way to get around faster than using like a 4-wheeler or some sort of Polaris or something, if you had some Enduro 250s and you were able to side saddle that'd be a really easy way to get around. You could ride dirt trails. You can like sneak through the wilderness with that. Although they're kind of loud, you'd have to do something with the exhaust and the sound on it, because you can hear those things quite some way away, But anyway, in terms of transportation to get around, saw the discussion of electric bikes. Those things are silent, but you get about maybe 20 miles on that, and you do have to pedal them and push, and actually do work with calories to get it. Enduros, pull that handle and you're gone up a hill. So there's something to be said for both types of transportation. I'm just reading through the comments, so thank you for throwing those out as well. We already are 2 different species from the year 2020. Okay, I'll leave that there. And I absolutely agree. A lot of people have said that the speciation has already begun its forking, depending on your choices to work or not work, to shop or not shop, whatever it is. So anyway, Ransom, thanks for bringing us back here. I kind of lost my train of thought on that there. But AI coming in, and I got another video for you. When you were talking about the glasses, I actually have the promo video of the glasses here that we could take a look at. and it is the where is that at? I had it over in Civilization Cycle on Telegram. I try to post some of these stories for you to follow along with. And here we go. I'm going to pull this down and let's share it again here, Ransom, if you don't mind. I'm going to pull back in. Let's get it on the screen share here. Here we go. Now this is, there's no sound with it, so I'm just going to watch it with you. Play this thing. All right, so this is the gesture-based control. So you're going to look like an idiot with a lot of these people just swinging your fingers out in the air here, capturing photos. People are just going to be wondering what's going on. Hey, you tried to grab my butt. No, I was trying to snap the photo from these glasses here. And you're going to be running into people, perhaps not paying attention. It's bad enough when they tell you don't use the phone when you're driving, let alone when you have all this information coming in, multiple locations, multiple time frames. So again, if something could be projected in front of you, oh no, there's nothing there, and there's a whole bunch of school children walking in front of the zebra stripes or the crossing there, and if somebody wants to remove you for something, yeah, they would let you crash into all those children. No, I didn't see them. There was nothing in my glasses. You know, that was a false image inserted in these things. Now they're going to know your location. They know everything, every single thing you looked at. You talk about a spy device. Like every single thing that this person looked at is now cataloged. So you're walking around in your house with these things on and knows every conversation you had, every single person you come in contact with, everything you're reading, everything you're texting, because you're not going to be like, oh, let me take them off while I text. They're going to know all your contacts, everything you've thought throughout the entire day. Like this is a step closer to putting this thing in your brain, of having them and these collectors of data know every single thing that you're thinking, seeing, looking at, and viewing. It's kind of scary, actually. Was that my screen there? I see something with that. Or is that you sharing that there, Ransom? Oh, poor little thing fell down. Is this the world you want to exist in?
No, I messed it up. I uploaded it because the one you showed was kind of choppy. I wanted to show how fast this thing was actually moving.
Oh, yeah, please do. Oh, was it choppy? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, like if you, I had to upload it to their website so we could watch it
Yes, the
fast.
thing about one of these is, okay, still, if that thing was in an aggressive mode and it was on a kill mode, that thing would overpower you. And just a swing, if it got it right, it would snap your forearm. Like it would break bones for sure.
Well, the
Like
thing
hardened like that, but imagine 2 or 3 of them coming at you. There'd be zero chance, man.
right.
Zero.
The thing about these things is they're not going to be fighting you. You're not going to fist fight the robot. It'll be more like, you know, you could put a small air compressor in the arm. It could literally put its hand on you and cattle prod you, you know, with a little air pressure. You're done. Or, like I said, it would just be equipped with weapons. It's not going to fist fight you, so don't worry about that. What's going to happen is you're going to have something that's like this. They're going to build it in a humanoid form only for the reason of intimidation. But they don't need it as a human form. It's actually less efficient that way. So what you're really going to be worrying about is these like the Chinese ball, things like that, little spider robots with stuff attached to it, guns and whatnot. Let me see. Let me get this back over here. But I wanted to go to the comment that you were talking about the airburst. We know for a fact that at that time period, about 12,000, I'm going to say 600 to 12,900 years ago, there were multiple events. You can go from the Carolina Bays. There's one well documented over Israel. There's another one well documented over, I believe it's Saudi Arabia, where they found evidence of this giant airburst that was probably a large meteorite that came in and popped. Either that or these are chunks coming off of the North American glacier sheet that broke apart when something smacked into it at supersonic speeds and put all of those giant chunks of rock and ice back up into the atmosphere, not to mention the tsunamis that were going worldwide. I've read several papers about that. One of them even insisting that a giant portion of the shelf off the American coast collapsed into the deeper part of the ocean, creating a tsunami that had feedback tsunamis pushing back and forth back from Europe, Africa, South America. And then you can imagine we're going to keep finding evidence of these things over and over again. Most of the impact craters on Earth are in the water. We don't even see them. The ones that we do see are up on land. And then things like this. Don't worry about what happens afterwards. The Earth's going to be just fine. People might disappear. We might disappear. But if something big smacked into us, it literally goes into the panspermia idea only in this way. This article talks about a 78 million years ago asteroid hitting Earth, and then a bunch of life sprang out of the cracks that goes deep into the subterranean regions of the Earth because of the way that this impact broke the crust and went into the internal layers of the Earth. This giant, crater. It now, it's just abundant with life. They're not really sure how fast that happened, but they know that like life just colonized that shattered rock area immediately and became a bio zone right there from the impact. But like I was saying, go back to the, let's say 12,500 to 13,000 years ago, we know absolutely that impacts were happening all over the world. And then you have to think about this on top of that.
Well, Ransom, could I ask you a question? Like, if there was an impact over the Canadian ice sheet, do you think it would be hit high enough and the shatter effect would go high enough to bring it supersonic to get it going some velocity again to air burst down over the ground again? Like,
Yeah,
you think
absolutely.
you think it would go up several thousand miles and then come get grabbed by the gravity and pulled back down into supersonic speeds where it would air burst again?
Absolutely. I don't see why that happened, especially if the content of the object was like mostly water or something that would be superheated coming back into the atmosphere and would make literally like a big steam bomb. But think about this also. Remember when Tunga happened, a registered, recorded ring of vibration and force went all the way around the globe like 3 times. But not only that, there's a paper that suggests that the initial volcanic explosion happened from a ring in the earth before that might have collapsed the cavern and let all of that water in the first place, kind of triggering the effect. So we know when these inbound things hit, not only do they, mess up the area there and throw a bunch of stuff up in the atmosphere, but they put a tidal, like not a tidal, that's the wrong word, kinetic force wave that goes around the planet, and every time that wave hits a dormant volcano or a fault that's just ready to erupt, that has a lot of pressure on it already and is ready to go off, you get these giant earthquakes, probably more tsunamis. You see, it's just like a big domino effect. So any large object that hits us, we screwed. If it's a city killer stuff, like you were saying, how small of an event would reset things? What if a small city killer asteroid hit something like, I don't know, London or Brussels or New York or Washington, any one of these big exchange where the money is centered around, the whole commerce and everything. What would that do to world finances if one of the financial systems on the earth, their capital just gone off the face of the earth? And when we're talking
Like,
about
it's
nuclear
multiple
war,
physical gold and silver they're holding there because the computer systems are all in the cloud now, so all that data is backed up. Like, it's not like 9/11 when the buildings came down where all the mainframes were housed inside the World Trade Centers. A little bit
eh,
different.
that's a good point too. Think about nuclear war. If they hit one of these places, guess what? That gold's not in circulation anymore, which tells me that the elites and the continuity of government groups are already thinking past gold as being monetary. Because they know that's subject to disappear if any global conflict or major disaster happened, depending on where it happened at. You imagine, like, if let's say a impact crater was formed in the UK, you imagine how vulnerable the continuity of government would be trying to ship out their gold to a more secure location, and then then you might understand why the Swiss build underground in these massive big vaults. They've always been that country that doesn't get invaded, that always it's good. You can hide your stuff there until recently when we decided that, no, you can't do that over there. We need to, see what you've got. But I don't think that anybody really audited them any better than we've audited the Federal Reserve Bank.
Yeah, you have to wonder though, where would be a safe location? Let's say that just for, a mind experiment here, that we started to get with all these comets coming by, that, the conjecture is, now it's still not proven, but the conjecture is because the opposite polarity of this comet 3I Atlas coming so close in through just barely above the cometary ring, or I should say the asteroid belt ring outside Mars orbit, that gravitationally it's going to tug a bunch of stuff toward our direction. Now it's passing us in one direction, we're coming the other, so we're going to do a flyby. But all that stuff it's tugging, we're going to roll into. So who's to say if one of these city killers does hit the planet, then how would you envision a safe location being if there's more space debris that's being tugged in our direction? At that point, could you really guarantee that that would be a safe location? I mean, some of the only locations that would be incredibly safe would be in the middle of mountains that had multiple exits. So whatever direction, either a tidal wave came in or some sort of, debris field got pounded up on ionic wind blast that, covered a mountain, 1,000 feet deep in debris, or they had all the excavating equipment and, drilling equipment in there where they could just drill their way out. Like being in a mountain or subsurface is the only way that something would be. They just say in London, that's really not subsurface except for the caverns and tunnels that go incredibly deep. But, think about some of these mountains where our continuity of government resides in granite mountains. I mean, these are the only safe storage spaces. And even then, if one of those got whacked by something coming in from space, that would get vaporized as well. So you can't really guarantee there's any safe space or any safe location on the planet to even house the precious metals.
No, you'd have to have redundancy. You'd have to have vaults all over the globe. And that is exactly what they
What
have.
they are doing right now with the resetting of the gold-backed currencies, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if you really think about each major player, and people are limited to thinking usually about nation states, but you have these billionaires and trillionaires where their company or even their self-worth is basically worth more than countries' GDP. Then we're not just talking about countries in the game here. We're talking about whole entities, giant swaths of the economy. And I don't think that the governments will recognize these billionaires' as power or sway anymore. They're just going to take their technology at that point. It's probably already happened. And it makes you wonder why they moved the space command from, Cheyenne Mountain, where they have a giant underground bunker. That was there before they made it Space Command, but they moved that down to Alabama, which tells me that we're going to be investing in more space race, more robotic AI space race. And it's got to the point where things are getting, really weird. You've heard of towns that, might vote in a cat or a donkey or a dog or something to be their mayor because it's just a ceremonial role. The real government takes place in some committee that you don't get to really take part in, or there's some council that you have to go and, you're limited to a 1 to 3 minute speaking period. And then it's not enough time to get your point across. So it's not really democracy in action. It's just, over in Japan, political party, they just want to install an AI leader and just go on. And you're going to see the
More
whole
and more.
Western world. I like Japan because they're a good indicator of how the West is going to go. And actually, I've read a lot of articles recently that Japan is doubling and tripling down, according to them, siding with the Anglo-Saxon Empire or the Western world governments. They don't want to be part of the Chinese bloc. Now, I don't know if that's going to be physically possible for them if there is some kind of altercation in, like the South China Sea or the Pacific in general. They're kind of, over there in their neighborhood. So that would be the front lines on anything that we'd be having. And people forget that Japan is no longer under treaty with the United States not to have a military. So in the background, they are building a military. They are one of the top nations when it comes to rocket technology, and one of the top nations in possession of nuclear refined material. So I'll just let your imagination go where that goes. And it would only take the Japanese people, very industrious people, probably a week to put the two technologies or three technologies together into a new format or a new platform. In other words, they would have their military willing, able, and easily being able to accomplish putting rockets and enriched material together and delivering those things to their neighbors right there. So they don't even need intercontinental ballistic missiles. All of the satellite technology and rocketry that they use for that is enough, and it'll work.
Hey, speaking of deliveries, Japan has just agreed to take 350,000 Africans in as refugees into Japan. Talk about a disaster waiting to happen. I mean, sheesh.
I think it would be a disaster.
Non-integration of that in the Japanese Yakuza trying to be like, you're not going to play here, man. You guys are just get out.
It's a really touchy subject. Well, the reason for that is because they have two populations in Japan. They have a Japanese population, and they have the descendants of people that didn't come from Japan that were forcibly moved there. And there's a lot of people that are not technically citizens. So each of those groups has a fertility problem. So they know that the Chinese are doing it. The Chinese are sending people into China. They have a wife down there, sub-Saharan wife. They come back to China. They have a wife there. There's no women in China. Why not let them do that? I guess it's influence, and it sways future generations. Like we talk about all the time. It only takes 20 years. Now you got a bunch of half Chinese, half Africans that now have two different, groups of roots and things that they might find important or loyal to. And then the same thing will happen in Japan. But it makes you wonder. I think it would be a disaster for Japan. It's going to be a disaster anyway. But that would have been a disaster no matter which group of nation that you picked, because of how uniform their society has become with traditions, mannerisms, and the way you do things. You just don't do it like that. Like people think that the Japanese are racist because they don't let outsiders into some of their hotels and things that are for Japanese only. And it's really not about that. It's more like that they don't understand you, so they don't know what to give you, so they don't want to feel awkward and not being able to, provide what you expect. So you're outside in a different thing. It's not really like people think of it as a prejudice. It's more like they don't want to dishonor themselves or embarrass themselves by not knowing what to expect from your foreign culture, because they're very hospitable. If they know about it, they'll provide it. That's why they have those other hotels for the others.
Yeah, Japan's a great country to travel in. I highly encourage anybody to go and travel there. Just incredibly wonderful people. Never felt a threat anywhere in Tokyo or any city we went to, down in Osaka or anywhere up in Sapporo. I mean, everywhere. It's just totally incredibly safe to go to. I mean, food's great. It's sad to see the runaway inflation they have. So for us, it's like the cheapest you'll ever visit right now. I think it's close to 160 yen for a dollar, which before, if you'd ever been there, was around 80 to a dollar. So their money is devalued by approximately 100% in their purchasing power from their own nation. But for us, we're walking in and it's cheaper to go there now than it is to be in the United States. It's cheaper to go to Italy than it is in the United States as well. So you start to look at this and go, wait a minute, what'd you just say? Because Italy has always been known to be incredibly expensive, and Europe's like off the hook expensive, and Japan is even like just double off that of Europe. But with all the deflation happening on our side and the inflation happening on other places, it's expensive to stay in America. But once you get out and get that exchange rate difference, it becomes much cheaper to stay in some of these other countries. I would say easily 15-20% cheaper in Japan than here for like just your daily living, eating out in restaurants, and, in Italy, depending on where you're at too. I'm not talking downtown Rome next to the Colosseum and some tourist joint, but out where actually Italians go and eat in their towns and cities for, just a regular restaurant that anybody would go to, local coffee shops, these sort of things. Again, 10%, maybe a little more cheaper here than the United States for the same exact, but the quality of life a little bit different. things are different. Time clock works a bit different in both nations. Others super precise, like you can't even be 30 seconds late. And the other one's like, hey, an hour late, we're kind of on time, cool enough, So America has become incredibly expensive for most of the rudimentary things. It's almost like you're getting ripped off just to just barely struggle and stay alive on a bunch of junk over here. Sub quality for a lot of things, just forced down your throat, and the cost of living increases with no luxury increase with that going up. And then you dive over into another place where our dollar can exchange at a higher rate against that. And you're like, time to pack the bags, because by the time you buy your airplane ticket and go and then come back and spend a month over somewhere else or 2 months and come back, then you've already well over broken even, because even the cost of your airplane ticket, if you're getting it on a bargain, that 20% or whatever you're going to save on your daily cost of living and all that thing is you get a free plane ticket to go. So, and then you probably save some money at that too. Because I know a lot of people who do dental traveling, where they'll go to like Thailand or Mexico or something like this, either have surgeries or dental work done. And it's, 10 times cheaper here than America. So they get a private nurse to, come in and make sure everything's all good with them, private chefs, private villa, and it costs far less than it would just to do the surgery in America.
That's messed up.
You put that in perspective for a second. You go to another country, you get the same exact dental care, because most of the people are educated either in Europe or United States. You get a villa, a chef, and a nurse. Could be male or female, in your recovery process for the whole month, like after some reconstructive surgeries or, root canals and this sort of thing. And it will actually cost you 4 times less than just the surgery cost here in America, or 5 times less. That's insane. Now, I'm sure you could talk more about, medical tourism in Mexico and, the stories, because you're much closer to the border down there, of what people going over to, how much money would you save? The doctors are top notch in Mexico too. I'm telling you, the medical quality, since we're in a global environment, people have internet, and it's just, the quality of medicine is pretty much, that's one thing that's come kind of to parity around the planet. If you have the money and if you can find the right doctors, like there's good doctors in every single country. It's not like it used to be where, man, there's no good doctors, don't go in there. But now you can find superior doctors in every single country across the planet now, just because of this interconnectivity. Now you're shaking your head going, maybe, but I assure you, if you had the money, you could probably get something half the price from America down to Mexico to get some surgery done. Because I know a guy who's going down there for a hip replacement. And he's like, dude, it's so much cheaper to go down there to Mexico to get the hip replacement done than it is up here.
There's only one problem with that. And
what's that?
That is true, that you could spend a lot less and get a good doctor and have a really good outcome. The problem is they ain't offering guarantees on nothing, and there's different levels of good doctors. So you might be saving some money, but then you end up with a problem that cannot be fixed. And then when you come back to the United States, they won't touch it. They won't cover it because they didn't do it. Like, say, dental implants or something like that. You could get them very cheap in other places. However, where are you going to go to get them fixed if they malfunction or whatever? No one here will touch you. Here, you can pay, God knows amount of money, like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on the same thing. But they give you a lifetime guarantee, at least as long as the company's around. See, and then in Mexico and places like that, there are some horrific horror stories of people trying to save money. But it's kind of, I think, with common sense, it's just like any other thing. If you went there, you could kind of tell if they put the money in. How many references are there? Do you know people that went there? Things like that. I wouldn't expect that much horror stories going to China or other places like that, because, well, they have a whole nother level of, being held accountable than they do in the other places. So you might save some money as long as it's not major stuff. I think it's probably a good idea. Like regular dentistry, you're going to save a lot of money. You just go to you can tell by how much money they spent to rent the place whether or not you're in the right place or not. I hate to say that, but like, if it looks like
Heart surgery in Mozambique, what could go wrong?
No, man. And it's kind of weird how we get to see China versus Taiwan and Japan. You get Taiwan and Japan are leading into the future with technology and biometrics and tracking. So is China. And you're getting to see the contrast of where the same thing, the same destination is at the end, no matter which way you go. So you go the communist route, you go the capitalist route, we end up being in the same spot of a super surveillance state ran by technology that no one really knows how it works anymore. And I kind of wanted to show you this because if you guys enjoy our show, think about this here. Let me share this article. It might not be around that much longer here in the near future on these platforms because they are going in a different direction. YouTube has decided that in the next decade, see, they're 20 years old now, believe it or not. YouTube is 20 years old, and they have built a massive company off the backs of creators and researchers and, you name it, that's been on YouTube with different YouTube channels. But they're saying in their own, internal stuff that they want to go into the future dominating the airwaves or the web waves, more like it, in the coming decades with AI, meaning shows like us, we might be by the wayside, as the guy on Ancient Aliens says. You put that by the wayside. That might be us. That's coming up. You just imagine us getting smothered out on the algorithm. It's already bad enough, right? With content censoring and algorithm manipulation, shadow banning. Well, imagine if, there's 50,000 creators that have a good following, and then they're just pushed out by 2 million fake AI accounts where you don't even make it to the top of recommended lists, or you don't even make it in the search engine because there's just so many things. And then what they're planning on doing is like, oh, look, civilization cycle's doing good. Let's make civilization cycle something else, just a little bit different, and then bombard the hashtags and the algorithms with this other thing that's not you, so that people never find you. That's where it's going. We're about to be shut off completely from having a voice. People are talking about free speech, and then you have Elon Musk saying no free speech but free reach. It looks like they're going to pull the reach out from everybody anyway and replace it with a completely fake algorithm that then no one for sure will ever know what's real, what's not real. And it's kind of like that when you go surfing around YouTube now. It's already getting there.
It is, yeah. And I read a content company that makes 3,000 podcasts per week. And the way they do the podcast, if they have more than 100 listens to it, they break even on it. So through their algorithm, they're making all these different podcasts for different genres of things and just mass producing it. And they're just aggregating the news, and then the news aggregator going across millions of websites gets some sort of general synthesis of what talking points would be to keep people's interest in certain genres, whether it be pets or whether it be war or whether it be finance or travel or moving house or economy and homes and building homes and mortgages, whatever it is. So they synthesize data across millions of websites, and this thing scrapes all that, and then it produces podcasts, and it's all linear by 30 minutes of each one. And then the next one they put out is slightly different, probably 50% different, but it runs along the same base information. But they call it like cube stacking, where the cubes are the different thoughts, or like a main, they might have 6 cubes or 10 cubes in a podcast. Like each 6 minutes or each 5 minutes, it'll change over on the main topic of it. Well, the mortgage rate's going up. Oh, the Fed's talking about this. Oh, the price of lumber's doing this. Oh, this housing market's overheating. Oh, these 20 housing markets are overheated too. Look, what people are moving from this state to another. So they'll run through, and then, they'll upload that. And they're like, as long as we get 100 listens, then we're breaking even. And their whole thing was trying to bring it down in the future to as little as 12 listens will be a break even point for their advertising revenue. And I was thinking, oh, you just described, it's going to be an overwhelm of things. Because I'll tell you my own experience here looking through YouTube. I'm very much looking for 3i Atlas information. Like, with Comet ISON as well. You could run through and you get a bunch of stuff. You could check out all the like NASA and a whole bunch of other, Sky Live, and see where it's at. And then they'll give you on websites and space weather news and this sort of thing, spaceweatherlive.com or spaceweather.com. There's all these different aggregator sites that are pulling up little tiny bits and images of independent astronomers and all these things. And you can try to, garner some new information every day if you really go out and look. But what I found with YouTube is it is slammed full of like aggregated bits of stuff just put together to make a Comet ISON title or a Comet Atlas title, excuse me, 3i Atlas title. We'll say something about Avi Loeb, and okay, it'll be Avi for talking for 30 seconds. Then it'll be all these other news bits that they've taken from news programs and they just sandwich them together. It's kind of like a remix of all the news, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And I tell you, it's either the same AI, but it's putting out dozens and dozens and dozens of these per day, where the real information that you're looking for is getting buried. And unless you know who to look for, like Stefan Burns, who does pretty good updates on that, Ben Davison over at Space or at Suspicious Observers, Diamond up at Oppenheimer Ranch pulls some good nuggets out of his ass. There's a few other people that if you know them by name, you can go find that type of information. And Tasha also, who's doing some things with the space weather. Otherwise, if you just go there and you put Comet 3i Atlas, you're just going to get a barrage of AI generated content. Like you're going to have to sift and sift and sift for hours until you find really one good nugget. It was never like that before. And I'm already seeing the overwhelm and just this incredible generation of AI generated content that's just disturbingly similar. It's just copy paste, sandwich it together, make a new story, new thumbnail, similar, same, but different. In the Avi Loeb, it's almost as if they're grabbing 30 seconds, the first 30 seconds, the second 30 seconds, the third 30 seconds, and then they're making a whole new thing. And instead of getting it from ABC News this time, let's take it from CBS News and slightly do the graphic and we'll change it more green. And then it's just this, and then they rework it. Instead of putting it in the first 2 minutes, let's put it at the last 2 minutes. It's almost the same thing. Just, it's like spun a million different directions. Like how much can you make out of tomatoes, cilantro, this kind of thing. Like you can make a million different dishes called different stuff, right? Like you think about Mexican food, love it to death. I love this, one of my favorite foods on the planet. But I'm just still amazed how many different dishes can be made by just recombining the different ingredients and either frying it or sizzling it or grilling it or whatever. It's the same exact thing. It's just resynthesizing all the same data and different time slots on all this AI generated content. It's really becoming noticeable now.
Right.
Very noticeable. And you hit it on the head there. It's just really, and I would encourage anybody out there to go just put in 3i Atlas on YouTube and see if you have a real person talking to you about it or if you have AI generated content giving you the feed on that.
Right. It's
probably almost 10 to 1 at least so far. 10 AI generated videos versus one real person video.
Yeah, and the news outlets are picking those videos to showcase, right? So if you go to MSNBC or MSN, excuse me, or Chrome or Foxfire, Google, any of the ones that put out the little board of news stories, you click on them, they're all going to be those AI things. It's really crazy. And you know what's funny?
And then ban everything. The alcohol tastes yeasty, but I don't filter it, just cheap sugar shine. Yeah, again, anything you want to find on distilling, if you find those videos that you like, you really need to save those now because they are starting to ban all this self-production from home types of videos and how to catch, cook, and clean things. You need to save all that in your own repository, screen record it, and then save it because it's all disappearing. Excuse me, Ransom. Let's jump right in.
No, that's all right. I was laughing about the 101 ways to have a tortilla. You got a tostada, or is it a taco? Is it a taquito? Is it a burrito? It's the same exact meal with the tortilla in a different shape or form, but you still put all the same stuff on.
Damn, I like every way, form, and shape it comes into, man.
And we do that, and it does something to the brain. Like we'll have tacos, and the next night we're eating tostadas. It feels different. It kind of goes down different, but it is the exact same thing, same foods. I'm looking for the same sauces and sides to go with it. I think what we're going to have here also this year is this inflated flu story. We'll just call it that, a flu story.
So they're already content must be real.
Right. Flu cases skyrocketing. Be prepared. Supposedly, right here. Where is it? Oh, yeah. The 2024 flu season is supposed to be the worst in 15 years.
Oh, wait. What just happened over in 2020, 21, 2022, by my
Remember their flu? Nobody was getting flu of those couple of years. Those were like
there were zero flu cases all those years.
It was remarkable that the flu went dormant for like 2 years in a row. It was so bizarre.
Yeah, zero. It was almost zero. I do believe it was near zero.
Sarcasm there, but yeah, just imagine they're going to be pushing this out and pumping this story. This is going to be one of the major stories. And how do you really get these things sick by them. And it's usually the same thing. If you look back through history, people were having bad times with food or growing crops or any of that stuff right about the same times that all of these plagues and things, that I watched this one the other day that was talking about one of the ancient Greek empires that used to fight with Sparta all the time. For some reason, I forgot the name of it. But anyway, they are basically the ones that are the format of Western civilization and the way that we lay out towns, cities, and stuff. And they were doing really good and they were fighting off everybody. But then all of a sudden, some mysterious plague showed up. Pieces of them were rotting off. There was feces and dead people everywhere. And they just collapsed internally after building what they called in defense, or what was it? It was, you couldn't attack them, since I'm having a George Bush moment and can't
The
come up with the word.
Thebes.
Yeah. Basically, no one could beat them. And then all of a sudden, they just got sick in the inside. Everybody got sick. Sparta came and conquered them very easily. They just rolled in and took over because they were all dead and dying, and they had plenty of food. A lot of people wonder where that is. But other than that mysterious plague that they don't know what is, you go look at the Justinian plague or any of these other ones. They're all right around the times of volcanoes, impacts, dark days, stuff like that. So we need that sunshine and that vegetation that comes out of that sunshine, or we're in a world of hurt. And even, say the atmosphere got cloudy and dark for a couple of years and people were subject to eating everything out of the can. Imagine how, bad nutrition would be overwhelming people and the sicknesses by the time the sun came back out and people were getting fresh veggies with the live things that live in the greenery.
490 BC. A mysterious plague raged through Athens, a quarter of the city's population, a mysterious outbreak. A first well-described pandemic. The golden age of Athens was, the end of the golden age because of that. Some called it the age of the Pericles, but again, that lasted all the way from 490 BC to 431 BC, a period, and then finally the end, and the nail in the coffin was the Peloponnesian War, and that was it. The Thebes had come in that time you're talking about when people were having some weird skin diseases. No, everybody was tired. They got struck so suddenly. That was the whole thing. Struck so suddenly, it seemed as if somebody had poisoned their drinking water because it struck so suddenly. Survivors of the disease talk about inflammations of the throat and the eyes, violent coughing, and then the rash that was on the skin. What you're talking about, it was such a rash, the skin was falling off.
All right. Pretty nasty stuff. And now think about it. 490 to what was the other date you gave?
431.
431. So 100 years later, we have the worst year to be alive.
Yeah, because that was so 490 to 431. That's like a 60-year nasty period right there itself. That was a full-on collapse in itself. But again, you got to wonder, was there a cometary tail, or was there a large comet at that time that was in close proximity to the Earth that would have left some sort of bacteria or some sort of, remnant of coming off of the tail of that to brush the planet?
Yeah, and then you got to wonder what comes along with all of these objects. We think of it as intersolar system objects, or from our solar system, in our system, where these objects, but now we know objects are coming from other places, which brings the possibility of real foreign or xenobiology from other places that you would have no idea. It would be like a shock and awe to the Earth. We wouldn't even know what was going on. It would take a while to discover what it was before they could even come up with ideas on how to treat it. And if they know that's already happening or has happened in the past, they wouldn't tell us. They're not going to tell us that.
Yeah, because Swan and Lemon are both going to be visible eye comets here on the screen. And then the unknown is Atlas, how bright that will get. But for sure, Lemon and Swan are going to be naked eye comets here in the next couple, 2-3 weeks. But then Atlas should be, as it comes around, we won't be able to see it because it's to be on the other side of the sun. But after it swings through somewhere around like late November, early December, we should be able to see it if it has interaction with the sun. It's unknown because the polarity is so different. We don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to be anti-tail? Is it going to be regular, like solar wind tail? Like, it's just unknowns. But Swan's coming through, and that's going to blaze by Earth right at the same time. Lemon is blazing by Earth too, you know. So we're going to get both of these naked eye comets in the sky at the same time. The color's unknown at the moment.
I was
Will
going
it
to say,
change?
think about the wakes. You know, you were talking about the other day, the wake of debris and stuff that's left in there. You can clearly see these two right here have already passed the Earth's orbit. So there will be a point in time where we would be coming through not necessarily debris fields, but clouds or particles
Remnant.
or dust or whatever. And depending on what's in that, that could spell disaster for Earth. I mean, maybe that's already happened. That could have been some of the reasons we have these outbreaks at specific times associated with stuff in the sky.
Well, they don't know where Swan came from. It just like suddenly appeared on the radar, just come out of nowhere. And this is the orbit that they give it. Well, if that was such a shallow orbit, then we should have seen this Swan come by 6, 10, 20, 100 times and have an absolutely definitive date on when it's going to return. But it literally popped out of nowhere. So what is with that thing? Like just newly discovered, it was behind the sun, and then boom, and then it was there one day, and then that's the orbit they give it. Look, it's not very far out, you know. I mean, you look at that and you go, really? Like that orbit would be coming back on a regular period that we would always count on, like we do with the Perseid meteor shower or with the Leonids or whatever. But Swan suddenly behind the sun, we just find it first time ever, and then they give it the orbit of that. Come on, man, you can't. That's impossible. That's really impossible.
Yeah, that sacred geometry in there. If you knew
Oh,
where
isn't
all
it?
the
I
line.
know. Isn't it interesting how they all overlap like that? Are we looking at the flower of life, and this has something to do with that, the way it's forming?
You know what's really cool is I don't sleep good, so I go out. I've been watching the sunrise every morning, and last night, perfectly, if you would just kind of tilt your head to the side, you could see the ecliptic plane of our solar system because you had Jupiter, Venus, the sun, and the moon all just in a perfect line, like there. Like if you're on Earth and you're looking from the side, every once in a while we get them all lined up where we can see stuff, and it's been like that. And we keep thinking about the ancient people, what they thought about stuff. uh my partner likes like astrology and stuff like that, and I told her, hey, what do you think the ancients thought out here? And I brought her outside, and look, there's Jupiter over Gemini, and then you have Venus trailing up, coming up through Taurus, and they're all flying through these specific spots in the sky. So in ancient times, like we were talking about before, they seem to have known the bigger scale of things and kept track of where stuff was, which is really kind of unimaginable considering supposedly they never had technology to even see these things, except for the ones that
Or
are
did they?
visible. Yeah.
And the history we've been taught and given is not really. So imagine the Younger Dryas impact that completely wiped out almost everything that would have been an advanced civilization up to that point. Like you're talking about a major, I mean, absolute devastating cataclysm on this planet. So those who were understanding of history are the ones who would have reemerged first with the highest technology, would be the ones that would control that point forward. If they understood mapping and where all these ancient maps come from that seem to have longitude with them as well as latitudes, longitude was difficult until until we got someone with the gyroscope and they could figure out time more like precisely to even get longitude. So if you can control history from that start point again and advanced technology coming out at say 10,000 years ago and be the first emergent out, because a few of these places, pre-Sumeria, 8,100 years ago, suddenly there's like, whoosh, there's civilizations popping out. But who were they really? And it doesn't seem like they allowed a timeline to be established until, say, 7,000 years prior with the Sumerians. Now, from that point, if you went around and mopped up all the ancient tech that was preceding the Younger Dryas that was still out there, like if you had maps and the Earth got tilted a little bit, or there was, like you say, flooding in some areas, and you would have had the older maps that would have showed where these areas were pre-ice sheet impact. You could have gone around and literally mopped up all the old tech because, well, if there's nothing there because it's just in a new emerged, part, you would never, leave that go. We just need to go. All this buried part is 70 feet underwater. Okay, we'll go get all the tech then, the unburied, the city that's underwater there. We'll get all that. So perhaps there's been an operation for 10,000 years to go remove the technology across the planet that would have shown that we had that ability to track all of this Because the way I look at it, especially World War II, that was just to destroy the remnants of what was left of non-functional ethereal energy devices called cathedrals, etc., that were non-functional because of whatever happened. The tech just wasn't working. But anyway, the tech was still there, but it was non-functional. So somebody could have recreated it. And if they had gotten the first one to restart and harvest that electricity out of the air, then they could have gotten the second one and third one started. So we were getting dangerously close with Nikola Tesla and Marconi and all these people that were swinging up through that age of discovery, Einstein included. And then suddenly World War II comes and it devastates everything and wipes all of that possible tech back to zero. And then from that point, everything was tightly controlled by what you consider universities. Even before that, Smithsonian, National Geographic, all these things. But go back prior to that, and was there an operation to remove all of the tech that had been in place around our planet that was still at the fingertips of people? If they would have found and experimented on, they could have found magical devices. It's always a question in my mind, because there had to have been remnants laid around. If you really go back and you start to learn about some of these cultures 30,000 years ago that were the greatest of, even 80,000 years ago, of just like mythological technologies at that level, populating the planet on all continents, a cataclysm, there has to be remnants around somewhere. There would have to be viable devices and viable technologies that would have survived part of the cataclysm, that maybe washed up on a shore somewhere else, or just got dusted over by a foot of sand that could have been refound somewhere else. And what happened to all that? Where is it? Because if the same thing were to happen today, you're going to find some of our civilization somewhere. You're going to find it. Will it be functional? Of course not, because it requires electricity to plug in. But if you had the device that you found and you're like, hey, maybe if we experiment, we could get something to make this thing turn on again, then they would have our tech. It's the same thing. Go 1,000 years in the future after a cataclysm, or 500 years, even 500 years after, let's say we have some sort of reset that occurs celestially. 500 years from now, they would find our computers. Not everything would be destroyed on the planet. There'd be remnants, no matter how great the cataclysm, unless we're talking about a massive entire pole shift, like geophysical, not geomagnetic, geophysical pole shift. Otherwise, we're going to find remnants every continent, around everywhere. Even if our shorelines got completely washed out and, the water rose another couple hundred feet and every single thing on the shoreline was erased, we are going to find remnants of our technology in inland cities. Okay, there was subsistence, there was liquefaction. Okay, there's got to be at least one or two cities left on every continent that wouldn't be that utterly, completely obliterated. We would stumble into this tech again and again and again. Would it not be the same from something that existed 30,000 years ago, that had survived all the way through the change and the onset of the warming coming out of the ice age? And then we had this gigantic cataclysm, boom, it hit the ice sheet. But that's in the northern hemisphere. Why are all the largest animals still alive down in Africa? Because they didn't get that affected. So maybe that's why Africa has been off limits forever, and we pillaged and plundered that, because that was the last place that the ancient technologies still existed that weren't damaged and destroyed to the tremendous effect they would have been in the northern hemisphere. You got to look at the Kalahari canals and the possibility for food production on those parallel lines. You could have fed up to 1 billion people just in that one area, produced at today's levels of seed technology and growth and irrigation. So I don't know. It's for conjecture, and it's just for a thought experiment. So hope you enjoyed that one. Ransom, anything to take us out with here? It looks like we got just another 1 minute left. Thank you for joining us tonight. Sign up for the newsletter. Weekly, buymeacoffee.com, also civilizationcycle.com. Drop your email in. We'll get you the show notes. Ransom, take us out.
With you saying that, I was just thinking maybe that's why they had such a hard on to get rid of Tesla, because he was approaching that technology that you wouldn't need to plug in anywhere. And if you found something from a different era, most likely they'd be using some other kind of technology like that. So you'd just be able literally to pick it up and use it if it was still functional. Just a thought there. But anyway.
See you next